when Harry writes in Spare how awful it was being in a goldfish bowl as a prince, and the glare of publicity, the gilded cage. And yet here we go again. So obviously it's about
ghoulish. That's the only word that can explain Prince Harry and Meghan Markle sharing a private picture of their so-called private children, Archie and Lily, on their so-called private vigil to lay flowers at Princess Diana's grave for the first time.
What's happening, I think, with Archie and Lily is they're being brought front and centre into the Sussex brand. They've been referenced when it comes to their charity work and Archwell Philanthropies, which, by the way, changes its name every 10 minutes because that's another hot mess.
He knows exactly what she's doing here, including the weird cosplaying of Princess Diana and the even weirder decision to try and overshadow Prince George's 13th birthday with new pictures of Archie.
Now, that's Meghan and Lily, and I've taken the view for a long time that Meghan sees Lily as hers and Archie as Harry's.
There's something about Princess Diana's resting place that makes these latest images especially striking. Her grave sits on an island in the middle of the lake at Althorp, the Spencer family estate in Northamptonshire. Charles Spencer has previously explained that the water surrounding the island was meant to create distance and protection, keeping unwanted visitors away from a deeply private place connected to his sister. That context matters because Meghan Markle recently shared a collection of photographs on Instagram, and one image quickly became the centre of attention. It appeared to show Prince Harry walking with his two young children along a tree-lined path, with Harry and his son carrying flowers. The children were photographed from behind, keeping their faces out of view, but the setting immediately sparked speculation about where the family had been.
I would now use Charles Spencer's words directly to describe the acts of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. You two are insane and ghoulish. You two have no respect for Princess Diana's resting place. And also all of us who have to put up with your constant briefings about privacy. And then you post the most intimate photos that we have never seen of members of the royal family unless they've been taken by paparazzi. Like, no, we don't want to see Meghan's ass cheeks, okay, while she's watching her children in the water. Please.
It's just terrible. They are so full of nastiness and getting their own feelings back on everybody. They don't care.
And this is where the story gets more interesting. Instead of getting stuck on whether posting the photograph was tasteful, there's another question worth asking. How did this visit reportedly happen in such a closely protected location? Althorp isn't some random public park where anybody can casually wander wherever they want. Diana's burial site was intentionally given privacy, and access to the island itself has historically been restricted. So if Harry and his family were able to spend time in that private area, somebody presumably had to approve or facilitate the visit. That doesn't automatically mean Charles Spencer personally arranged every detail, but it does raise questions about what happened behind the scenes. Charles, meanwhile, does not appear to have publicly explained the circumstances surrounding the reported visit, and that silence has only made people more curious. Rather than confirming who visited, who gave permission, or what exactly happened privately at Althorp, he has seemingly allowed the photographs to speak for themselves.
I just don't understand how Harry could want to do this. This is for his mother, who he loves, so he says, and to turn it into a show is just beyond anything. And it's amongst all sorts of things that they've done in what they call their summer holiday, because I don't know what they're doing. Not a face do you see, not a face of these little ones. They're always back to the camera. And you just think, oh, what are they doing? They're 5, 7. I mean, it's just disgusting.
But there's another angle here that may be even more revealing: the value of privacy itself. Shortly before this became a talking point, a veteran royal journalist was reportedly asked what photographs showing Meghan and the children back in Britain could potentially be worth. His answer was simple: possibly 6 figures. Whether any particular photograph would actually command that amount is impossible to know without a real sale, but there's no question that clear images of the Sussex family returning to Britain would attract major media attention. And yet, during the reported trip, photographers apparently struggled to capture much of anything. There weren't endless airport photographs, roadside pictures, or obvious long lens shots following every stage of the family's movements. If the reports are accurate, they were able to travel with an impressive level of discretion. That complicates the familiar argument that Harry and Meghan simply cannot enter Britain without immediately becoming surrounded by cameras.
Meghan does not show the children's faces, and so that therefore this is somehow their privacy is being protected. It's completely absurd, frankly, because what Meghan is doing by not showing the faces, or by revealing them very slowly, by revealing side portions or half portions, is feeding what marketers call a curiosity.
Of course, one successful private trip doesn't prove they could always avoid media attention, especially when circumstances and security arrangements can change. But it does show that, under the right conditions, significant parts of a visit can apparently remain out of public view. That makes Meghan's decision to share selected photographs herself much more interesting. Instead of allowing paparazzi or tabloids to control the first major images, she could choose exactly what the public saw. The angle, the moment, and importantly, what remained hidden. The children's faces weren't shown. The photographs revealed enough to create conversation without revealing everything. And if the Althorp interpretation is correct, the flowers and location carried an emotional connection to Diana that ordinary family vacation pictures simply wouldn't have. So the real value may not have been what those photographs could have sold for. It may have been the story they allowed Harry and Meghan to tell on their own terms.
But I do think the timing is just odd. You know, it was dropped on a Thursday. Prince George's birthday was on Wednesday. On Thursday, people were still talking about the photos and still talking about Prince George's future when Meghan decides that's the appropriate day to drop photos of her children. So it is a little odd. It's a little just thirsty, you know. Back to me. I need the attention. Come on.
Charles, you are a legend of Fleet Street. Can you give us a ballpark figure of the value of a photograph of Meghan and the kids back in the UK? What would that go for?
Oh, six figures without a shot. That's
wow.
Meghan's got her cell phone ready to go.
Yeah, but I mean, if you remember when Fergie, the former Duchess of York, got caught having her toes sucked in Saint-Tropez, those pictures went for £1 million. So you're talking about that sort of level.
Wow.
You're talking about that sort of level of payment. And it depends, you know, in the circumstances of how the pictures were taken.
Rather than outsiders capturing the moment and deciding what it meant, Meghan's post placed one carefully selected glimpse into public view. And almost immediately, people began trying to decode what that glimpse was supposed to represent. To understand why these photographs have caused so much debate, you have to understand Charles Spencer's history with Althorp. He isn't simply a distant relative watching all of this unfold from the sidelines. For decades, he has been closely involved in protecting the estate and, most importantly, maintaining the privacy surrounding Princess Diana's resting place. Charles has shown before that he's willing to draw a hard line when Althorp is involved. When the producers behind Netflix's The Crown reportedly wanted to film at the estate, Spencer said he turned the request down. Whatever people think about that decision, it showed that a major production and a famous royal drama weren't enough to make him automatically open the doors.
Total betrayal, having promised King Charles that their UK return would be private and discreet. The Sussexes have proved once again that they cannot be trusted. You cannot do business with these people. Now, it's my understanding that King Charles was very clear about the ground rules for the Highgrove House gathering, which I'm told was barely an hour in length. And the rules were very clear. No photos, no publicity, no interviews. Good luck with...
Even more seriously, Charles has publicly claimed there were several attempts over the years to interfere with Diana's grave. According to him, those incidents reinforced why the island needed such strong protection. The water, restricted access and removal of the original bridge weren't simply dramatic touches designed around Diana's memory. In his telling, they served a practical security purpose. That history makes the reported family visit much more complicated. There has been speculation that strict privacy rules were established around the gathering, including claims that professional cameras weren't supposed to be involved. Exactly who established those boundaries and what they specifically covered isn't entirely clear from the public information available. But somehow photographs were still taken.
So Meghan couldn't resist, could she? She just couldn't help herself, bending the rules with a huge photo drop on her Instagram, publicising her UK return. She had to show off. She had to flex her muscles. She had to send a very clear message. I am back. I'm the Duchess with a capital D, and I'm an English royal princess all over again. And this is just the beginning.
And obviously, you don't need a professional camera crew anymore. A phone can capture high-quality photographs without photographers, lighting equipment, production vans, or anything else that would attract attention. So the existence of these pictures doesn't necessarily prove that any formal photography arrangement was made. Still, it leaves one major unanswered question. Did Charles know photographs were being taken for possible public release? There's a huge difference between allowing Harry to privately photograph his children during an emotional family moment and agreeing that those pictures could later appear before millions of people. Without Charles publicly explaining what permission was given, outsiders simply cannot know where that line was drawn. But there's another detail that deserves attention. Meghan herself apparently isn't visible in the particular photograph that caused so much discussion. Instead, the image centers on Harry and his children, walking with flowers through a location deeply connected to Diana. That naturally shifts some of the focus toward Harry because he has previously discussed the privacy surrounding his mother's grave himself. In Spare, Harry described how the bridge to Diana's island had been removed, explaining the measures taken to discourage unwanted visitors.
Charles Spencer has not stopped exploiting Princess Diana. The only reason why 99.99% of the people go to the tours at Althorp is because Princess Diana grew up there, but most importantly is she's buried there. Harry and Meghan have changed everything.
In other words, Harry wasn't walking into this situation unaware of how seriously the Spencer family treated that location. He already understood the history behind those protections, and there's an earlier example that makes the contrast even sharper. On July 1st, 2017, what would have been Diana's 56th birthday, her family gathered at Althorp for a private service connected to the rededication of her grave. Prince William and Catherine attended, Harry was there, and Prince George and Princess Charlotte were also reportedly present. The Archbishop of Canterbury conducted the service. Yet despite the obvious public interest surrounding that gathering, photographs from the graveside were not released. The event remained private because that was apparently how everyone involved wanted it handled.
I'm going to call this Project Diana. We've seen Harry and Meghan, especially Meghan, using Archie and Lily now as part of the Sussex brand. But Diana's next. It's going to be a Diana documentary. Netflix will make it. They'll pay Harry and Meghan a lot of money for it. William will be furious because it will be made without his permission. It's his mother's too.
There was no need for the public to see the family standing at Diana's resting place to understand that the moment mattered. That's why the latest situation has generated such intense commentary. If Harry returned years later with his own children and photographs from the wider visit eventually became public, people are naturally going to compare the two occasions. But unless someone involved explains exactly what was agreed beforehand, it would be unfair to claim that Harry or Meghan knowingly violated Charles Spencer's wishes. What we can say is that the boundary between a private family moment and a public image became much less clear this time around. And Charles Spencer's silence has left plenty of room for speculation.
Meghan doesn't really like to hang out with anyone who's worth under 10 million, really. But clearly they flew in a private plane. Their dog is there. They didn't put their dog in storage in Delta. And it's all very elitist for me. It's just, did this need to happen? I don't think it did.
Prince and Princess of Wales drop a grown-up picture of Prince George to celebrate his 13th birthday milestone, and now all of a sudden Archie has grown 4 inches. And specifically Summer Belle adding Prince George was seen sitting in a plane, so of course Meghan just had to make sure Archie was seen doing the same. She is a crazy stalker.
There's another part of this debate that keeps getting pushed almost entirely onto Meghan Markle, even though Prince Harry was clearly part of the moment himself. For years, Harry has spoken critically about the way his mother's life, struggles, and memory became material for newspapers, television productions, books, and endless public discussion. That frustration has become a major theme in how he explains his relationship with the media. So when photographs connected to Diana's family home become public, it seems strange to discuss Harry as though he had nothing to do with what happened. Yes, Meghan apparently posted the images. She selected what appeared on her Instagram account, and presumably she had control over the presentation. But Harry is an adult who was physically there. In the photograph attracting the most attention, he can reportedly be seen walking with his children while carrying flowers. Whatever the exact circumstances were, he was participating in that family visit.
My crystal ball has turned out to be true so far. In a couple of weeks, maybe 2027, Meghan Markle is going to come out with a limited edition Princess Diana as ever candle. Okay, I hope when she drops the Princess Diana candle, it actually has a wick. Okay, Prince Harry, he's wickless. He has no wick. She's witless. This is absolutely on another level. Like, did she go and sprinkle flower sprinkles at Diana's gravesite? I won't be shocked. Is that the next Instagram video that we're going to get?
That distinction matters because nobody outside the family currently knows what Harry and Charles Spencer discussed beforehand. Maybe personal photographs were completely acceptable. Maybe Charles knew some images could eventually be shared, or perhaps the boundaries were understood differently by different people. Without confirmation, claiming there was some deliberate betrayal would go beyond what the available information actually proves. Still, the optics have created an obvious contradiction for critics to grab onto. Piers Morgan summed up his own reaction underneath Meghan's post with one word: privacy. It was a pointed jab at Harry and Meghan's long-running arguments about press intrusion, although their position has generally been about controlling unwanted media attention rather than promising never to share anything publicly themselves. Then there's the timing, and this is where the online conversation gets even messier. Around the same period, Prince William and Catherine released a new birthday portrait of Prince George. Shortly afterward, Meghan's collection of family photographs appeared online. That close timing was enough for some royal watchers to wonder whether the posts were competing for attention. There's no public evidence proving that was Meghan's intention, so that interpretation should remain exactly what it is: speculation. Social media posts can land close together for all kinds of reasons, particularly when royal birthdays and family milestones are involved. And despite another theory circulating online, the timing doesn't appear to require some complicated explanation involving a new product release. Earlier lifestyle products associated with Meghan's business had reportedly already launched weeks before, so framing these photographs purely as advertising doesn't neatly fit the timeline. What does make the story more interesting is the contrast between the photographs and some of the reporting surrounding the family during roughly the same broader period. Public coverage had painted a much more difficult picture around Harry and Meghan, particularly concerning Harry's continuing security dispute in Britain and questions about how safely the family could travel. Reports and commentary described tension, complicated travel arrangements, and emotional conversations.
And the fact is that Harry stayed in London and no one revealed where he was staying. I don't think anybody actually found out where he was staying. He wasn't staying at the palace because we know that was quite documented that he wasn't going to get a room at the palace. I mean, if he ended up staying at the palace, then, you know, job done. But nobody actually said he was staying at a particular hotel or a particular private place. And
Right.
It's exactly the same up in Birmingham. We don't know where he...
Then came Meghan's photographs. And suddenly the public was seeing a completely different mood. There were relaxed family moments, outdoor scenes, their beagle, food, drinks and images presenting the period as warm and personal. It looked less like a family trapped inside non-stop chaos, and more like carefully chosen snapshots from an enjoyable summer. But those two versions don't necessarily cancel each other out. A family can experience serious stress while still having happy moments between the difficult ones. Social media almost never gives viewers a complete diary of somebody's life. People normally upload the photographs they actually want remembered. And that may be the most revealing part of the entire carousel. The photographs don't necessarily prove that reports of tension were false. Instead, they show which version of that period Harry and Meghan were comfortable placing in front of the public, and which part stayed firmly outside the frame. But there's one argument surrounding these photographs that deserves a much closer look. A lot of the criticism has been built around the idea that Diana's resting place should be treated as completely untouchable, and that she herself would have strongly objected to any photograph connected to it. The problem is, nobody can genuinely know how Diana would have reacted today. And her own history with the media makes that assumption even harder to defend.
family outing to go see the grave on private property. Not to mention, Diana's brother, the Earl, had said no cameras. And by that, he meant no camera crews. But he clearly didn't mean a camera phone, which means, of course, when they went over to the island, there was obviously a camera phone with them. Is there photos? Are there videos? Harry is thinking of doing next year for the 30th anniversary of her death, which is also incredibly.
Diana understood publicity extremely well. During the breakdown of her marriage, she didn't simply sit back while newspapers and royal insiders shaped the story around her. Andrew Morton's famous biography was produced with Diana secretly providing information through an intermediary, something Morton later publicly discussed. Then came her explosive Panorama interview, which gave Diana an opportunity to tell millions of viewers her version of what had happened inside the royal marriage. Whatever people think of those decisions now, Diana clearly understood that controlling the message could be incredibly powerful. She also had a complicated relationship with photographers. At times she wanted privacy and was aggressively pursued by the press, while at other moments she understood exactly how a photograph could influence public perception. Reducing that history to either Diana loved cameras or Diana hated cameras misses how complicated her relationship with publicity actually was. And there's another uncomfortable part of Althorp's history that often disappears from this conversation. After Diana's passing, Charles Spencer opened parts of the Althorp estate to paying visitors during limited summer periods. That decision attracted criticism at the time, including from Elton John, who reportedly considered some of the commercializations surrounding Diana's memory to be in poor taste.
A couple of weeks ago, Meghan Markle had the front to brief the mainstream media that it was her who was never going to release pictures of the children with King Charles. It was her who's so determined to protect their privacy. And then this dump on Instagram, when finally it's revealed by people within the mainstream media that life within this marriage ain't happy. We know that Prince William's strongly held and deeply passionate view is that this site must remain sacred.
When Harry writes in Spare how awful it was being in a goldfish bowl as a prince, and the glare of publicity, the gilded cage, and yet here we go again. So obviously it's about...
So debates about where remembrance ends and publicity or commerce begins existed long before Meghan Markle entered the royal picture. That doesn't automatically make Meghan's decision appropriate, of course. It simply means the current controversy isn't as straightforward as saying nobody has ever allowed Diana's resting place or memorial surroundings to become part of a public conversation. Even the broader idea that royal burial sites can never be photographed doesn't really hold up. In 2022, Buckingham Palace publicly released an image of Queen Elizabeth II's ledger stone at St George's Chapel after her burial. Obviously, the circumstances were completely different, but it demonstrates that there isn't some universal royal rule saying a resting place can never appear in an officially released photograph. The more important question is whether there were specific expectations surrounding Diana's island at Althorp, and whether everybody involved respected them. That brings us back to Meghan's Instagram post. Rather than assuming Diana would have been horrified by the very existence of a photograph, there's another interpretation worth considering. Meghan may have been using a media strategy Diana herself understood extremely well. Release a carefully selected image, say relatively little, and allow everybody else to debate what it means. The photograph doesn't need a huge explanation underneath it. The flowers, Harry, the children, the tree-lined setting, and the connection people immediately make to Diana do most of the storytelling themselves.
So incredibly disgusting, and I can't help but imagine Prince William would be incensed. There's nothing wrong with them visiting Diana's grave, but why did she have to disrespect Harry and her children by posting about it? This is a woman who's claimed for years that all she wants for her family is privacy, and then she commoditizes her children and the memory of her deceased mother-in-law for the world to see.
He will never get what he wants. If he is going to continue, then I think he needs psychiatric help.
I think that he is going to continue, because if he is capable of just throwing this away, this campaign away, then why didn't we see Harry with Meghan in the UK? It's as if, and they do this constantly, it's as if they're punishing us by not allowing us to be graced with Meghan Markle's presence throughout the trip. She's in hiding at Althorp. She doesn't show up to the Invictus event. He treats it as if this is some big loss to humanity that Meghan Markle is not available for paparazzi shots or for photos, when in reality, I think that there was a huge sense of relief from the Invictus organizers that they didn't have to deal with the chaos.
but saying Meghan deliberately copied Diana's media strategy would still be interpretation, not something Meghan has confirmed. We can observe the similarities without pretending we know exactly what she intended. And perhaps that's why one photograph has generated such an oversized reaction. It isn't simply an image of a family walking with flowers. It touches Diana's legacy, Harry's relationship with his mother, Meghan's control over her public image, and the complicated question of who gets to decide how royal family memories are presented. That's a much bigger fight than anything visible in the photograph itself. There's another person hovering over this controversy, even though he isn't actually in the photograph. Prince William. Some commentators have suggested that if William really is unhappy about these images, the issue may go much deeper than whether taking photographs at Althorp was appropriate. William grew up watching the intense media battle surrounding his mother unfold in real time. He was still a child when Diana's private life became international news, and as an adult, he has generally taken a much more controlled approach to protecting his own family's privacy. That history makes any public use of Diana's memory especially sensitive territory, but claims that William sees Meghan as somehow using Diana's own publicity tactics against him remain interpretation. William hasn't publicly explained his reaction to these particular photographs, so nobody outside his circle can confidently say what he thinks. And that brings us right back to Charles Spencer. One royal commentator raised a simple point that cuts through much of the drama. If these photographs really were taken at Althorp, then access to the estate presumably came through the Spencer family. That distinction is important.
Charles Spencer was instrumental in Princess Diana's divorce and her untimely death. This man now is trying to rewrite history to avoid complete accountability from their actions. His actions are absolutely consequential to why his sister is now dead. Charles Spencer is a really nasty man. He's been divorced 4 times. Most of his kids are not speaking to him. He is a very unpleasant kind of man, and he has since stopped exploiting Princess Diana's memory, her death, her place of final rest.
Althorp is private property and Harry is Charles Spencer's nephew. A family visit there is very different from photographers forcing their way into a restricted location. If Charles knew photographs were being taken and was comfortable with them eventually becoming public, then much of the supposed scandal changes immediately. There would be no secret invasion of the estate and no need to imagine somebody sneaking past security. It could simply have been Harry bringing his children to a place connected to their grandmother with photographs taken during that visit. But that possibility creates another question. Why hasn't Charles publicly cleared everything up? In theory, one short statement confirming that Harry and his family were welcomed and that the photographs caused no problem could shut down a huge amount of speculation. Instead, Charles appears to have remained publicly quiet about the specific circumstances surrounding the images. That silence doesn't prove he's angry. It could mean he considers the visit a private family matter and has absolutely no interest in participating in another royal media storm. It could also mean the arrangements were more complicated than outsiders realise. And then there's an additional theory circulating around the story. Some royal commentators have suggested that future media projects connected to the anniversary of Diana's passing could potentially explain why material connected to Althorp is being gathered now.
Last, 8-10 years of all the outfits she's copied of Diana's. And, it's actually quite Oedipal and weird. It's almost as if she's trying to remind Harry, I'm Mummy. And remember, you married
I'm
the woman.
I'm still in her perfume.
Yes, exactly. I'm the woman that your mother sent you to marry. I'm embodying her spirit.
One royal biographer has reportedly gone further, suggesting the photographs may somehow be connected to a future project. At this point, however, that should be treated cautiously. Unless the people directly involved confirm such plans, there's no solid basis for presenting the visit as some calculated production exercise. Still, the possibility adds another layer to Charles Spencer's silence. If future plans involving Diana's legacy are being discussed privately, Charles may simply have reasons for avoiding public commentary right now. On the other hand, his silence could have nothing whatsoever to do with future projects. That leaves several possibilities rather than the dramatic 2-choice scenario some commentators have presented. Charles may have approved the photographs. He may have approved private photography without expecting public posting. Or he may simply believe what Harry and Meghan choose to share afterward is their responsibility, not his. Until Charles actually speaks, nobody outside that family knows which explanation is closest to reality. And that uncertainty is exactly why a seemingly simple photograph has turned into such a complicated royal debate. And after all the arguments about Harry, Meghan, Charles Spencer, privacy, permission, and Diana's legacy.
He is not a frontline serving member of the family. And that return to the UK just a couple of weeks ago called Harry and Meghan's bluff. It proved that they can come to the United Kingdom and they can be in a blacked out SUV and they can go into Highgrove House. They can get around the country in and out perfectly safely. And it completely destroys Harry's argument about having armed cops. You could argue that if he had the blue lights and the helicopters and the police outriders, he'd be more vulnerable.
It would draw
because
attention.
It's telling everyone where you are at all times.
One surprisingly basic question is still hanging over this entire story. Who actually took the photograph? That detail matters more than it might seem. The image appears carefully framed with Harry and the children walking ahead while the person behind the camera remains completely invisible. Yet despite all the attention surrounding the post, there doesn't appear to be a publicly confirmed answer identifying exactly who captured that particular moment. Maybe it was Meghan, maybe it was somebody connected to the family, maybe it was a member of staff or another person who had permission to be there. There are several completely ordinary explanations, and without confirmation, there's no reason to turn an unknown photographer into some mysterious figure sneaking around the estate. But knowing who took the picture could help answer the bigger question: how planned was this moment? If it was simply a family member pulling out a phone during a private visit, that makes the situation look considerably less dramatic. If photographs were being intentionally taken with the understanding that some would later appear publicly, then the visit starts looking more coordinated. Neither possibility automatically means anybody did anything wrong, but they create very different interpretations of the same image. And that's really what this entire controversy has become: competing interpretations. We don't publicly know exactly what Charles Spencer approved. We don't know whether he expected any photographs from the visit to appear online. We don't know what conversations Harry may have had with his uncle beforehand. And despite endless speculation about Prince William's reaction, we don't have a direct public statement from him explaining how he feels about this specific photograph.
Prince William has made a bold, shocking, dramatic move, one that nobody can stop him from doing. With this, he has said, enough is enough. You will not exploit the remains of my...
What we do have is one carefully selected glimpse of Harry and his children in a place carrying enormous emotional weight for his family. For some people, it will look completely innocent. A son bringing his children somewhere connected to the grandmother they never had the opportunity to know. For others, sharing that moment publicly clashes with years of arguments surrounding privacy and media intrusion. And there will be people somewhere in the middle who understand the family significance while still questioning why this particular image needed to be shared. So now I want to hear where you land on it. Do you think Charles Spencer was fully comfortable with these photographs eventually becoming public? Do you think permission may have been given for a private family visit, but not necessarily for the images to appear online? Or has this entire situation been blown way out of proportion because people are reading far more into one family photograph than was ever intended? Drop your take in the comments because there are plenty of different angles to this one. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit the like button, share the video with someone who follows the latest celebrity and royal drama, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Before you leave, check out the next video appearing on your screen right now. If you thought this story had layers, there's plenty more celebrity drama waiting for you over there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.